Okay, well, it is great now to have Joel Lorenzi, works for The Athletic, been covering the NBA for the last few seasons. You're in the middle of your first year here covering the Chicago Bulls and back in your hometown. How's it been for you?
It's fun. It's kind of surreal being around a team that you grew up around. I gotta admit, like I was a Lakers guy just because of Kobe, but like I got into basketball when those D Rose teams were born. So like everything that's happened this season, D Rose getting his jersey retired, being around the franchise, obviously their brand is like, transcends sport. So it's been cool being around them for sure and just being around a team period I mean, we can go down this rabbit hole, but the Thunder are unique as a team. So to get around a team that's like more relaxed, that sort of thing, like it's very fun.
You mentioned obviously growing up watching D Rose. How was it for you? Especially maybe from a personal standpoint, but also as like a writer to being there to see his number one jersey get retired.
Yeah, no, it was crazy. I mean, obviously they've had those four names in the Raptors forever. So just to be there on a night where I mean, like we're lucky enough to be in games that I think the going rate for like standing room was probably like upward of 300 on that night. So to be in the building is one thing. To see those teams celebrated is another. As a guy like that was one of the first teams I knew well. So it was really cool. Like last week, I'm more of a long form guy anyway, and I got to spend time with Derek and profile him and kind of the stuff he's doing in retirement. So it was fun all around, and it was just cool to be around.
Well, speaking of long form, we love long form content here at Fox Chicago. So we're so excited to have you here on this podcast today, and of course, talk about Bulls. Where today's Sunday is right now, and the NBA trade deadline is on Thursday. First off, the Bulls. They made a move last night, being a part of a three-team trade here with Sacramento and Cleveland. And really, I'm reading the email right now, so it's official from the Bulls PR. Bulls are getting Dario Saric from the Kings, along with a 2027 and 2029 second round pick. Obviously, part of a three-team trade deal here. DeAndre Hunter, he's going to Sacramento from Cleveland, and then Cleveland will get Dennis Schroeder as well as Keon Ellis. Just first off, break down this trade for us.
Yeah. So for Cleveland, like they got off, I believe 50 million over the next 2 years with DeAndre Hunter. He was obviously making a ton for their rotation. Jalen Tyson and his emergence kind of made DeAndre Hunter more expendable on the wing, especially for a guy, he's probably having the most middling season of his career. Cavs obviously want to contend, and so not only that, but they add two feisty guards who do a little bit of different things. Keon Ellis is a workhorse and maybe not the best defender, but can run some units. And Dennis Schroeder has always been like a hot pocket microwave scorer, and he usually plays well in these situations. So they got two good guards, I'd say, and which certainly helps with kind of Darius Garland's like tricky injury history here. So they got the good end of the deal. And in Sacramento, I think people around the league are still kind of confused what their involvement was. Keon Ellis for such a dead trade deadline week, like Keon Ellis was the name who people were like, okay, if it's
Mhm.
not gonna be Giannis who kicks this thing off, like Keon Ellis is a more realistic way to get the ball rolling, and people assume like, hey, he's such an asset. Maybe he'll get the Kings a pick, maybe even something as lofty as a first rounder, and instead they send out a second rounder to the Bulls in trying to deal him, which I know a lot of people are baffled with. And then the Bulls' involvement is like, look, I know it was shocking for a lot of people because in past years when the Bulls were trying to sneak into the playoffs through the play-in, they maybe didn't value these assets as much. They weren't getting in deals like this to get second rounders. But I think with the new CBA and everybody's new understanding of it and how valuable even second rounders are now, I think they signaled that they are more willing to get in deals like that and be a hub. I mean, they got all these expiring contracts. They kind of signaled that they're willing to be a hub for deals like this. I mean, they got in on the back end, and for their trouble of taking on Dario Saric, who's now a Bull, they waive Javon Carter. For their trouble, they take on 2 seconds, which it's a very light lift. They get assets out of it. dare I say, it's a good deal for Arturas and the Bulls.
Yeah, they're really acting here as like more like a financial buffer. Sarek,
Yeah.
he's been in the NBA for 11 years, averaging 1 point per game, 1.2 rebounds in 5 games he's played. Um, just going into this NBA trade deadline, AK at the beginning of the season in his press conference talked about wanting to build while also still competing. And I know the fans here in Chicago are just really exhausted from hearing the same old storyline. It's really like a broken record to everyone here. But when you initially look at this move, and as you said, right, good move here by AK. What do you think this sets them up for? Maybe a few days from now, but maybe going into the draft as well, because I believe they could also have 2 first round picks too, depending what happens with Portland if Portland makes it into the playoffs, right?
Yeah, and Portland, I think Bulls fans should be really fixated on that now because this morning news broke of Portland getting Vic Krejci, who's like a big playmaker from Atlanta. He's had a good season, used to be with the Thunder, kind of one of those hidden gem guys. And Portland got him, which clearly they're buyers at this rate. They're trying to push for a playoff spot. So helpful to the Bulls. And I just think it signals kind of like I said, like the Bulls are kind of in asset acquiring mode. Like I know when AK says in the preseason, like they want to build while competing, like the triggering word is compete because
Yeah.
people know the history of the Bulls competing is trying to squeeze into the playoffs through the play-in and gunning for the play-in and 39 wins and this perpetual state of like being in the middle. Whereas I think while AK could have certainly chose better words, I think they're in a state of development here, and they kind of know what they have, and they know certain guys don't fit the timeline, and I think they're really fixated. I mean, you saw it with uh, Josh Giddy and the deal they gave him. Like, it's a very team-friendly deal in hindsight, and so I think the framework they're operating in now seems to be around Giddy and Modest and this really youthful framework. And so I think they're in a developmental stage. Like I think Arturas has to stop using the word compete. I don't think he can help it because it's kind of in the fabric of who he is. Like he's got that competitive bone. But I think they're leaning more toward development than they were maybe 2 seasons ago when they weren't looking for assets like they got in this deal. I think you could maybe expect to see them go after more assets like that before the week is over.
I feel like from my time being here in Chicago so far, developing is really some of these young guys have certainly been something that they've been focused on. You look at the player development room, those PD guys, and how much work that they've been putting into with some of these young guys. Why do you think though? Because when we hear AK talk, right, it's always like competing, building while staying competitive, right? And Billy Donovan gets asked about it too. Sometimes even before the games, hey, like how do you balance out this, in a sense, tough situation that you're in? Because let's be real, like coach, your hands are kind of tied behind your back right now, right? You can only work with the roster that they've given you. But why do you think maybe the Bulls and AKs just they won't fully commit to saying, hey, like we are fully focused on developing and using that word too instead of the we're trying to compete and still stay competitive.
Yeah, I mean, there's blame is probably the wrong word. There's like you could point everywhere to why that might be the case. Like I think ownership probably like still has a good amount of say in the direction of this franchise. And historically, I mean, this year they kind of monetized the celebration of Derrick Rose, and they've been making money off the ball guy for the past 30 years. He hasn't been in the NBA in forever, and so that's kind of their thing. And I don't know that they've broken away from that. I mean, there's also just such a risk in like the thing that fans seem to want now is rebuild and tank, which are like, those are sensitive words there. And I think there's obviously such a terrifying risk in that. Like teams like Utah have been tanking forever and hasn't gotten them much of anything. You can go down the list. There's also as many teams who've gotten lucky, like San Antonio and OKC, who made their rebuild happen in 2 years. And so it's just a terrifying risk involved, one that I'm not sure uh, it's as easy to get everybody to commit to. And Billy Donovan is not a rebuilding coach. Like he went from everything we know, like when he and the Thunder decided to part ways, the Thunder couldn't necessarily guarantee that they were going to be competitive those next few years. And obviously they were horrible. They won 20-ish games both of those seasons. That didn't seem like something Billy Donovan was willing to stick around for. And even now, like coaches are just wired to win. And I think Billy is like at the top of that, like lives to win with guys like Trey Jones and Kevin Huerter, right? So I think it's just tough to convince them to get into a state of complete tanking where like the only focus is development. I don't know that Billy Donovan at 60 and with the Hall of Fame resume has that in him to be like, okay, we're gonna build something from the ground up. And with that, you got to think like AK has to draft with in mind, like, is Billy even gonna play this guy? You know, like Billy wants to win. Like even before, like Noah feels like, don't get me wrong, like a core piece of this framework, but before he got hurt and was ruled out for the year with his shoulder surgery, like Billy wasn't playing him at all. So there's so many variables involved, but generally it's tough to get an organization in sync on like losing and sort of building something and tearing something down all the way to the ground level.
What are you hearing in terms of just obviously conversations? Because you talk to these guys, right? Front office guys, coaches too. What are you hearing in terms of Coby White, Ayo Dosunmu? Obviously, Vooch is someone that a lot of people think that they should have moved on from him last year, and given where he's at within his career. Like I personally believe he does deserve at a chance of being on a team that's truly competing, right? Similar to like Alex Caruso, we see him get shipped off to OKC. They obviously won a championship there. But what are you hearing in terms of Coby White's value and Ayo Dosunmu as well?
Yeah, and so much of this will change. Maybe even when we get off this call,
Right.
certainly tomorrow, the next day, as we get closer. So much of the standstill that teams are at right now, to my understanding, is so obviously like what's going to happen with Giannis, what's going to happen with John Morant. There's going to be a trickle effect that follows those guys. Um, and sort of this collective understanding, it seems, of the CBA. Like nobody wants to be that team that's acting irrationally and pressing the red button at this deadline when it seems, you know, like having assets like the picks the Bulls got yesterday and first rounders, like those are at a premium. And so just giving that stuff away and making irrational deals, I don't think that'll be as common at this deadline as maybe previous ones. Like I'm not sure you're going to see, know, like Desmond Bain going to Orlando for like 5 first and
Yeah.
stuff like that. Um,
Okay,
but people-
speaking of timeline, I believe it was around the time this year, last season, that Luca got traded
yeah,
to LA.
right.
That
And
was
and
yeah.
you'll never see that again. Maybe not a mind like Nico Harrison again, but um, I just think because of all those variables and how slow this thing has been, it's tough to gauge a going rate for a guy like Coby White. Like it's clear teams have expressed interest. Um, Like he's obviously helpful to like a playoff team, a contender. I know Minnesota's a team that's been linked to him a ton for obvious reasons. You know, they can use another ball handler. The ones they have in the rotation are like Rob Dillingham, who's way too young and way too inexperienced, and Mike Conley, who's way too old and his experience is not good on the floor. And so, like Coby White just makes sense, but also you have to consider the variables that I think have made the discussions a little tougher, or the fact that he is expiring, the 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 figure maybe that they came into the year with as a guy who was hot at the end of last year. Now he's dealing with all these nagging calf issues. Like there are some, let's call them red flags that have made it hard to just say, hey, let's throw a first rounder at Chicago to get this guy to a playoff team. Like there's some, from what I understand, admitted reluctance because of all these things. Now, could the Bulls be enticed by maybe like a couple seconds for him? Like maybe, I don't know. But it does seem like teams are really clutching their first rounders. And I don't know that Kobe's at the top of that list in terms of being maybe like a late first if a team can guarantee that they're going to be able to re-sign him. But with all the sort of murkiness, like it makes it tough, especially today with 4 days left until the deadline. Like maybe you'll see a team act with more urgency sooner to the deadline, and maybe the Bulls come out with a late first. Who knows? But it's tough to say right now, and without many deals going out, it's tough to even gauge his market, like what the going rate is.
Yeah, his contract situation certainly does make this a little tricky. Bulls right now, they're 24 and 25, down in Miami, getting ready to play the Heat once again. Who do you think plays better alongside Giddy, Ayo or Kobe?
Um, it's a weird thing because I don't think Kobe's been. We don't have a good sample this year of Kobe being himself. I've tried to give him grace with the whole nagging calf issues. That being said, I think generally Io is a more portable player. Like if you have a blank situation, and I know this is like a weird hypothetical because the Bulls don't have a blank situation. That the team is right in front of you, but they are operating with a lot of different variables. Regardless, blank situation, you're starting a team. Io is sort of the better asset to me right now, just because obviously he's having an incredible year. He's shooting career high like 45% from three, which you can argue is that sustainable? Probably not. But regardless, he's an improved shooter. He's a willing POA defender, which I don't. He's obviously not Isaac Okoro there, or even like definitely like leagues away from like a Case and Wallace there. But he's definitely a better defender than Coby White. Um, and then he's a secondary ball handler, which the both of them probably are. They can both run offense to some degree. He's not a point guard, but he runs offense to some degree. And he's 6'4", 6'5", good size. So I think as an asset, like you can see, especially at his price point, like I know the number thrown around for Kobe before the year was like 30 million, which I don't think he's gonna get. But Io is looking at probably something closer to the MLE next year, which is like 15 million, which would double what he makes now. But even then, that feels like easily tradable and a much more valuable contract. So for me, Io's the better asset. As far as who's better next to Giddy, um,
Yeah, because we know for sure, obviously, Giddy's someone that they want to build around. I don't think I've heard as well. They want to keep Modest, of course, someone that they've drafted, hometown kid as well. So those two guys, I don't think are going anywhere.
yeah, I think I don't know. I mean, going based off this season and like I said, the sort of hampered Kobe White.
From Kobe.
I just don't think uh like the idea of Kobe is not what he's been. Like he's supposed to as the high volume shooter he is, you'd think his gravity would kind of contribute to how easy it could be for Giddy on the floor. And frankly, like I don't have the on-off numbers in front of me. Uh, it seemed easier when they were being staggered versus when they
Mhm.
were on the floor together. I mean, obviously there's issues with the two of them as the grade of defenders they are. If you got them in a backcourt together, you should probably have a better defensive big than Boots behind them. That's an issue. So Io is a better defender. Um, I think he needs the ball less. His shooting increase, like the efficiency hasn't come at the expense of him getting downhill. He seems like an easier fit to me. I mean, Kobe just needs the ball more, which granted, at his best, better things probably happen. He gets to the free throw line more. He can get hot and hit three threes in a row. But I think in most situations, like Io is just so pluggable that it just probably makes more sense. And he's gonna make, in theory, it's certainly less, but I mean, in their heads, the price points, I mean, Io probably makes like half as much as Kobe wants.
And I think when you look at how last season, right, even for the Bulls as a team, certainly they ended the year really hot. Coby White ended the year strong as well. Suffered an injury before even training camp too during the offseason when he was training. Okay, so we're about 4 days away here from the NBA trade deadline. Do you think either Coby White, Ayo Dosunmu, Vooch, do those guys remain a Bull a week from now? Do you think the Bulls are going to make any other moves?
Let's go down the list.
Okay.
Let's start with Kobe. I I think he's the most likely to get moved, just
Okay.
because it's not an age thing. I mean, he is getting like he's closer to like 30 than 20 right now, which I don't think is an issue. If he was like 28, it would be an
Yeah.
issue. Um, but I think they probably know that they've sat on him as an asset for way too long. I think of the core pieces you named, like I think Giddy is probably higher priority. Modest is probably higher priority. perhaps even Noah is higher priority just because these guys are on favorable deals. I mean, Modest and Noah are on rookie deals. Josh Giddey's at a team-friendly deal for a
Right.
French All-Star. Coby White, I imagine he wants to get paid, and the number he probably wants, it would probably be a very long, drawn-out negotiation, which I think the Bulls are probably better wiping their hands with. Um, Ayo, I think Ayo. There's two sides of the coin, right? As much as he's probably the best asset of the three right now, it makes it enticing to be like, is he worth keeping around? He's a very close knit relationship with Modest, which is an important thing. Homegrown guy, which is Lord knows these Bulls love Chicago guys.
Illinois kid too.
Right, Illinois kid too, and um, like it doesn't seem to me like unless a team is like, here goes a first, here goes this, like unless the package is right. I don't see him being moved in the next 4 days. I mean, he's playing incredibly. Obviously, you're gonna have to view this through the lens of long term. Um, but I don't know. I think it would take a greater package than any of these players to for them to like not to say that they're married to the idea of Io, but like it feels more likely that he sticks around. And then Vooch, uh, I think if they could have traded Vooch, they probably would have traded him a while ago. But it's like Mike Dunleavy said. Mike Dunleavy had a bar when talking about Kuminga. He said, there has to be demand for us to be talking about a trade, right? And so, like, I had one person suggest to me that the big market here is like approaching is like kind of sparse. If a winning team, needs a big, ancient big in this case, so like maybe, but I mean generally like he makes too much money, he's expiring anyway. Um, if you are a team making a playoff push, consider what you need to put next to him for it to work. While he's great at stretching the floor and he's gonna get defensive rebounds, like there are athletic limitations, and obviously his defense is like you need a real athletically gifted, defensively talented forward next to him. At the very least, that's like minimum ask. And so the team's already dwindled there. So I just don't. The interest just doesn't seem to be there. So I think Vooch probably stays with the Bulls and just expires, and maybe they actually no. I almost said that they maybe bring him back on a team friendly deal, but I mean I just it seems far fetched with how much he clearly wants to win, to the point that I imagine he might even take a low figure just to compete somewhere at the end of this deal.
Do you think the Bulls could get a first round pick back for Kobe?
With the right situation, I'm not going to rule it out. Do I
Okay.
think it's likely today? Maybe not. But like there's probably a bundle of enticing seconds that, I mean, s seconds are such a good currency now. Like you can lump those in for, a decent first or whatever. And the Bulls have 7 seconds to work with now. So uh, like it's still good currency. It's better currency than it's ever been to me, this second rounders. Uh, so it doesn't seem like I imagine there are going to be deals where there are seconds involved, and it
Mhm.
it wouldn't be hard to like green light them. But the first as of today sounds kind of far-fetched, especially while we don't know like the going rate of like similar guards or frankly anybody. Like like it would be irrational to point to like what Sacramento did with Keon Ellis and be like, oh yeah, that's the market. I think that's just Sacramento kind of doing bad business, whatever. But I'm not in that front office, so I don't know what's going on in their heads, whatever.
All right, Joel. Final question, just to kind of round this out for you. When you look at this Bulls team right now and just even going into the trade, I just feel like right now they do have some leverage here. And of course, getting these 2 round picks, they can obviously leverage it here, or maybe even leverage it in the draft, or maybe they move up or some way and get a player that they want.
Yeah.
What direction do you ultimately think that they are going to decide to move into? Because I feel like after today, right now with where they are as a team, they certainly have some leverage going into this trade deadline, and they've got some assets too with these two second round picks that they've gotten.
Yeah, I think they're not as rigid about winning as they were even like 2 years ago. Like obviously there's still competitive people in that building, but I think their primary focus now is developing the core of the young guys in that framework. Like we talked about, Modest, Giddy, Noah. Like they're closer to that timeline than pushing for 30-year-olds and trying to make like misguided playoff pushes and stuff like that. Like I wouldn't go as far as to say that I think they're ready for a rebuild. I think the people in place that makes it impossible. And again, it's a terrifying risk. I think they should rebuild, but I don't think they're going to. I do think they're focused on the young guys more than they have been. Like 2 years ago, like they probably could have traded like a Drummond, but instead they kept them to push for the plan. I think they're much closer to a rebuild than they are those days.
Mm. Joel Lorenzi, thanks so much for your time. We've got 4 days till the NBA trade deadline, so time will tell if AK and this front office will make another move. Thanks for your time.
Thanks for having me.